Hello and welcome to Felixstowe TV, the ever-ready, ever-functioning Gainsborough studio. We have a different layout, we have a different studio manager, we have an increased support staff, so all is really exciting here. Eric's not been well for a couple of weeks, but he's back in the chair today, accompanied by the ever-faithful Bella, so we should be doing well on that. Just a couple of updates, if I may. I don't know, we'll put this up on the thing. This is what is coming towards us in about 5 weeks' time. About 50, 60 odd events here in the resort over the weekend, Friday afternoon to Sunday. Now,
and you must say what it is.
It is the Heritage Open days, and it's really for folks to come and see things that they normally wouldn't have seen, or get in to see things that they previously paid for free. The intent is that we improve people's knowledge of the place in which they live, its heritage, its culture, things of interest. So there's quite a lot happening. But more on that anon. What we really have to do is to get on with Eric's This Is Your Life. As you know, we're on to episode, whatever it may be, that will be on a thing. But I've got a surprise for Eric this morning. He's totally unaware of this, but as a result of this program going out on the internet, a gentleman called Malcolm Starr, who lives up in deepest, darkest Wisbech, has gone to quite a lot of trouble, time and effort to use Postman Pat to send me some very, very interesting information, which we will come to next week, not this week, Eric.
Oh.
And it's actually here is an article that was written in a publication that I've never actually heard of. It was called Traditional Homes Magazine, and he's taken out the whole thing, and this was what we've gone through. So we'll go through this with a fine-tooth comb between now and then. But what he's also sent me is the same property, the sales spec of this beautiful home that you actually basically saved, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely.
But what I find quite upsetting on your behalf is this statement that's in the first page, and it says, the current owners have lived at Well Manor for 20 years. We brought it lock, stock and barrel from United Distillers, who are the founders of today's Norfolk Punch. Now, that really is a stretch even for an estate agent, is it not?
It is
so we'll
really
return to that, because I'm affronted by that on your behalf.
Well, it doesn't worry me two hoots.
I'm glad.
You.
But I just think, you know, credit should be given where credit is due.
Just may I come in at that point?
Yes, you may.
Because, of course, just about IDV, Norfolk Punch, which we found this old recipe amongst all the deeds and what's it of Well Manor.
Yes.
It was a Tudor copy of a medieval recipe, and I made it up. It took me 6 months to interpret it and make it up, but we made it up in the kitchen sink, and it was a marvellous drink. And then I tried it the first time at a bazaar in Wisbech, a Christmas bazaar, and it made everybody so happy, they rolled around practically. And of course I realised it was the poppy, it was the cornflower poppy, not the opium variety, but it had the same effect. It gave you the same uplift as a drink. But the whole point was, it was the first of the herbal drinks. Yes. Now, nowadays there's about 300 or 400 herbal drinks, but in those days there was none at all. In fact, I was told nobody's going to pay for a bottle of $1.99 of something without alcohol in it. I said, well, if they don't, they're missing out. So, but anyway,
it's true.
On the strength, we founded it, and we started in the kitchen sink, as you know, I've told a story, and within 3 years we were selling 1 million bottles a year and employing 60 people, had a big factory. But the whole point was IDV, who are the biggest drink manufacturers in the world, they put on the market, they've got an eye for things, they put on the market Purdy's and Aqua Libra, which are still on sale.
Right.
And they did so well that IDV approached me because they wanted the original, because obviously if they wanted to push up their two brands.
Yes.
And they approached me, and that was how the sale, how they came to buy it.
Oh, right.
But that's just to put that little
in
statement
context.
on. And the other interesting thing is that, of course, after I'd sold it to them, this is running ahead on the story a little bit, but I had a good friend called Malcolm Starr, who's the man who contacted you.
Yeah, I thought it was lovely.
And he came to see me one day, and at that particular time, IDV, because they'd achieved their object, so they'd actually passed the Norfolk Punch on to Britvic, who still are the nominal owners of it. For England, of course, because we still own abroad. But the whole point was that they, I'd sold them Well Manor because they wanted have the whole story.
Right.
And obviously, when they passed it on to Britvic, and Britvic, you know, the whole thing was a bit what's it. They offered it back to me.
Oh, did they?
And at a very reasonable price. But of course, my wife said, no way. I'm
out of here.
I would have liked to have bought it myself.
Yeah, right.
But even Norfolk Punch, you know, she said it's either me or Norfolk Punch.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And of course, she had her wishes. I was married for 65 years.
Yeah,
she was the boss.
Yeah. We know our place, Eric.
We know our place, definitely. No, but it was she was right, of course.
Yes.
I mean, at my age, I shouldn't have been doing it. I started it after I'd retired.
Yes,
So, and that was 20 years ago, so it does show you a bit.
Yeah.
But Henry, to cut a long story short, they offered it to me, and as it happened, Malcolm, one day, he came to see me. He was having some problems, I can't remember what they were. And he came to me, and I said, you wouldn't be interested in buying Well Manor, would you? And he said, oh yes, I would. And I said, you've got it at a very good price. It's the same price that I'm being offered it back by IDV.
Right.
And he said, oh yes, I would. And of course, he bought it, and he's looked after it and done so much work to it. He's made the gardens absolutely. They were lovely when I had them, but he's even improved them.
So young Malcolm is the current owner?
He's the current owner. He's the one who's selling it now.
Well, he should make sure that the script in there was right.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
I feel that, you know, credit should be given. And you did an awful lot of work to create that drink.
Oh, that drink is an amazing
be like calling
drink.
Pim Smith or something.
And in actual fact, it's now coming back into England, I might add.
Oh,
but
good.
It started off, one of the things, you know, I think I've told you the Gravedigger story, haven't I?
Yes.
I hope I
have.
have.
Yes, you have. Yes, you've heard it. You heard it on this channel.
I hope you've heard the Gravedigger story.
The Gravedigger, yes.
And then we had 3 agents, and it went all over the country, and we started distributing it. But of course, it started getting an interest nationally, because it was the first herbal drink, and it was doing things amazing things which it did. You know, it cleared the chest.
I've heard the claims. It sounds like, what's it called? Snake charm.
Well, and it was absolutely true. It was basically, I think it just made you feel happy.
Which
but
is lovely.
That's a good thing.
What we were going to pick up on...
But I was just going to tell you that because it began to get known, I was approached by the BBC whether I'd come and talk about this wonderful drink on the morning show. Now, the most popular show in those days, it wasn't as it is today. Back in those days, the Radio 4, their morning show was tremendous. It was listened to all over the country.
This has been the home service?
It was on the home service, yes, I think it was.
Okay, for our older...
And so I was asked to go in and see this celebrity. Now, I can't remember the celebrity's name who ran it, but no matter. But before I went in, I managed to arrange that I had it heated up, because you had to drink Norfolk Punch hot.
Right.
And I said, well, I'm going to make up a sample for him to drink. And they warned me, oh, no, don't do that. I said, why ever not?
It's the only thing to do.
He said, oh, but if he doesn't like it, he'll slash it. He'll say, oh, that's dreadful. And it won't matter, you know, it's too late then. It's gone out to millions because nothing recorded. It was all out loud to the microphone. So I said, no, I don't mind. I've got my complete faith in it. Right. And so I went in, a little bit in trepidation, I might add. But it was only a small room, no bigger than this. Yeah. And he sat either side of the desk, big mics.
Love it.
And I gave it to him to drink, and he drank it. And he said, oh, he said, by Josh, that's marvellous. He said, that is really something.
Wow.
My heart went up.
Oh,
and so we talked nicely about all the history of it, etc. But I went home, and of course, before the day was out, we'd sold out throughout the length and breadth of Great Britain.
Isn't that
Every
great?
shop had sold out.
Yeah.
That shows the power of the radio in those days. In those days, yeah. And so what I did, I sent him a telegram, because in those days it used to be telegrams, not texts and faxes.
Not even faxes, yeah.
And I said, as a result of your marvellous comments yesterday about Norfolk Punch, it's sold out length and breadth of Great Britain. And so the next morning, we'd managed to get some stocks out to all the different places. The next morning, he read out the telegram.
What? Isn't that great? I
And
mean,
so he read that out, and of course there was another rush on the shops, and the Norfolk Punch never looked back after that.
well, thank you to the BBC then.
Thanks to the BBC.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing in those days, I don't suppose anybody will remember it today, was Howard's Way. It was a soap. It was a soap. Everybody looked at it.
It was sailing and all that.
And I
jazz.
used to look at it. And
Yeah.
one day I was sitting there looking at it. This is nothing to do with us. This was completely the Howard's Way people. This woman walking up the drive up to this house, carrying what? A bottle of Norfolk Punch.
Wow, that's
and
creme.
on show, so you could see
Yeah.
it. And she knocked on the door, and she said, and the person said, "What have you got there?" She said, "I've got something very special for you. It's a new herbal drink." And this was on the national, on the soap. Once again, we sold, you know. And this is one of the things that established it.
Yeah.
And because it was new, nowadays it's just another drink. Herbal does 300 or 400 of them. But we managed to get it into Sandringham, which was very good. You know, their gift shop for all the visitors. And one day, my wife and I used to take the cases every week down to Sandringham ourselves.
Yeah, you weren't that far away, were you?
We weren't far from it, but it was a joy to go in and you know, go in the back way. And but one day we got to know the manager of the shop very well, and one day at a weekend he rang me up and he said, "We've got Prince Philip's driving trials this weekend."
Oh, right.
And he said, we're manning the shop. You know, they obviously had their Sandringham shop at the trials.
Yes.
A stall for it. He said, "We're manning it on the Saturday, but we can't make it on the Sunday.
Right.
Would you like to do it?
What, instead of that?
Just instead of them in their own Sandringham stall.
What,
just
selling
have Norfolk
the whole
Punch.
range, but
Just
plus Norfolk?
No, not to sell their stuff.
Just
but
yours?
Just our stuff.
Wow.
But in Sandringham. So I said, yes,
Yes,
please.
I bet you did.
So I obviously no staff, so I had to go and do it myself.
Yeah.
So I stocked it up, and of course, as usual, I mean, it was an amazing drink, especially, we always used to give samples. And we sold out, needless to say, and it was coming to the close of the day, and this young man came up to this thing, and he had two big burly assistants behind him. I thought, well, this is a bit funny. He looks familiar. But, and he said, "Have you got some Norfolk Punch?" And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we've sold out. So, you know, I can't offer you even a sample to say." He said, "Have you got any Norfolk Delight?"
Oh, right.
Now, Norfolk Delight was a sweetmeat we used to make which contained Norfolk Punch.
Right.
So that if you couldn't drink Norfolk Punch, you could suck a bit.
I like
and I said, "Yes, here's some." And I said, I've got a box here. And I sold him gave him the box. He didn't have any money. So he turned to one of these assistants and gave him the money, and he gave it to him. He said, his mummy loves that.
And suddenly?
And then he went away, and then suddenly it dawned on me, it was the youngest son.
Prince Edward.
So, you know, I was very chuffed at that. And I know this is for a fact because I was very proud of the fact, I might add. But I know this is a fact because with Sandringham, we always offered them, you know, they had a season that they were open for.
Yes, they do.
And at the end of the season, I used to say, well, you know, you can we'll take back anything you've got left in stock.
Right.
And they said, "Oh, no, it goes down to London."
Oh, right,
so,
to Bucca. Lovely.
So that's so we know, but that's why I think it became so popular. But of course, when we sold out to IDV, it was on the condition, because as you know, we lost our very first baby, and we adopted Blair, who was a marvellous young man, and he became. We got him in with the Sunday Express as a photographer, and then he went out to Australia, and because he married an Australian girl, another lovely girl, Rhonda. And they went out to Australia, and there he became the leading photographer in Sydney.
Lovely.
And which I thought, well, that's great. You know, what he's managed to do is great achievement. And having become the leading photographer, obviously a demand for his studio. He sold out his studio. He came back to England for a holiday. He said, "I don't know what to do with myself." He said, "I've got this idea." I said, "Well, why don't you take Norfolk Punch out to Australia?"
Absolutely.
And he took it out, and he wowed the country with it.
Oh, right.
And
So he's still doing that?
So when I sold out to IDV, I retained the rights of of Norfolk Punch in Australia and the Far East.
Oh, right.
And
So he's still gainfully employed?
but he's just on the point, because he's retirement age now.
Well,
I hate to tell you.
I know.
I know, it's dreadful.
But like you shouldn't retire.
Yes, but at any rate, the whole thing is now
I'm glad we got to Blair,
Yes,
because I want Blair, who was working in London,
yes,
found out for you that the Great Danes that you'd had down in Sussex weren't the biggest dog.
they weren't
The biggest dog was...
The Irish Wolfhound.
So what did you then do?
So we obviously got ourselves an Irish Wolfhound. We've got two Irish Wolfhounds. We called them Punch because of Norfolk Punch. And then we had a female one, so we called her Judy, Punch and Judy.
Oh, right.
And we've still got, my wife made for me for a birthday present, things which I still treasure, life-size models.
Yes, I've seen those, falling over them a couple of times.
Yes,
Yeah.
my son
Glorious.
Christopher, who's very talented, he found this woman who made these two models up.
Oh, right.
And the woman, she'd made models for the Victoria and Albert Museum, but she started with my two big dogs, and they gave me for my birthday. We were at the big house we were at the time, which we were living in, Hermitage Hall. On my birthday, I was taken through to the library, and I suddenly looked, and there were these two great Irish Wolfhounds sitting, lying on the floor in the library, and I thought, well, that's strange. They were behind me, you know, they were following me.
Right.
And of course, she'd made these. This person had made up these two marvelous replicas of them, full size.
Yes.
And strangely enough, I heard last month that she's now doing it in America.
Oh, is she?
Making these replicas of dogs, and she gets £12,000 each dog that she does.
That's more than the dog's worth. Anyway, we won't go there. What we will go is, I've also had an Irish Wolfhound.
Yes.
And the thing that I was astounded by was how placid, how
incredible.
family orientated, how undemanding. They will have as little or as long a walk as you wish.
Yes.
And they are just a member of the family. A bit scatty occasionally,
Yes.
because ours used to do, and no doubt yours did, the mad run. They sort of get that into their brain.
I never did that.
Oh, ours did. And it would do a sort of whatever, get it out of its
would
system, and then
no.
and it was just, you know, bottled up.
No,
and off it went.
absolutely incredible. We had another one called Buster when we had Hermitage Hall, and we had 70,000 visitors a year, but that's a chapter we're coming into.
Right.
But Buster, he used to plod his way over to the visitors, eat all their lunches, and plod back again. And the visitors used to come back again to have it repeated.
Yeah, I know.
But they were so amazing because they'd lie down and little children could crawl all over them. And if they hurt them, you know, dug pencils into or something, they'd just stand up, shake the child off, but they would never retaliate to the children. But absolutely lovely dogs.
I remember for ours, we went to a place to Hadley where a lady was breeding them, and we went to look at the pups. And when we went to leave, the mother wanted to come with us, leave the pups and come with us,
really?
get out of the way. Yeah. But no, a wonderful animal. So you had those at the manor.
Yeah. Oh yes, and of course it became a haven, a wildlife haven, because as you recall, it was a pre-Bendery manor and house, and it had the big towers still there all the way round, which of course used to be part of the wall, which went all the way round the manor house, with a moat. But the towers were all that were remaining.
You must get a plan
of course, I bought 6 doves.
Did you?
And blow me down, by the time we finished, we had about 2,000 doves, and they were everywhere.
You need to put them on the pill.
But they were very dear to us. We had peacocks, of course, which used to rouse the neighbourhood.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
But we only had 2 or 3 there.
You don't need more than that.
At Hermitage Hall, we had 20 of them. The most marvellous watchdogs you could ever have.
Are.
Absolutely incredible. And they
it's
understand
the noise.
you. I could go out at night. If they suddenly kicked up a fuss, I'd go out and say, "Stop it! It's only me." And they stopped.
Really?
They always roosted up in the trees.
Yes, I know.
Absolutely
with those
incredible.
tails, magic.
But the most amazing pet we had at Well Manor was, of course, the sheep.
Sheep or lambs?
Well, what happened was it was Easter, and my wife, who was very religious, she went away for Easter for a week's retreat.
Right.
And I thought, what a nice idea. When she comes back, I'll have a couple of little live lambs for her.
Did you?
I
Right.
thought, well, as you do, you know.
Well,
so,
it seemed a good idea at the time,
the
Eric.
idea it did. So I bought these 2 little lambs. They were absolutely
Lovely.
lovely
Yeah.
little things. And she was delighted with them, and we put them in the garden, and we had a nice little house for them. But then, of course, they grew up
Into sheep.
into sheep.
Yes.
And those sheep, as sheep, they used to chase the dogs, they used to chase the visitors, they
Really?
used to chase the goats, they used to ravage everything. You have no idea what they were like. They,
No, I
they
haven't
really
actually.
went mad. And
Yeah.
we put up with it as long as we could, but I mean, you couldn't have these things which
No.
would attack
Completely
anybody.
disrupting the
But you wouldn't
homestead.
think it's sheep, you know, and they
Well,
weren't.
we used to round them up on Dartmoor, but we didn't really know how territorial they may be.
But this is too. I mean, we
Yeah.
had a flock of sheep when we had Bridge Farm.
Ah.
This is later another story altogether.
Yeah.
But we had a flock of them, but they were
They were then a herd.
But these
Two
two, I don't know
individuals.
whether it was how we brought them up or what it
Bad
was.
parenting.
Bad
I
parenting.
blame
Must
the
be-
parents.
Must be
I
something.
do, I do.
But anyway, so in the end, I thought, well, we'll have to have them put down
And you
because
did,
it's.
yeah.
Well, we didn't. I went to the abattoir in Wisbech because in those days they used to be everywhere. Every
Yes, they
town
did.
had
Sensible.
one.
Yeah.
And I arranged with them that at the end of the day, when there weren't any animals about, they'd be all ready for me. So I'd drive in. They wouldn't see, the sheep wouldn't see any other animals, and they wouldn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
And so I took them in, and of course they did the business
Yes,
with
as
them.
they do.
And so I took it back, and I took them to the local butcher. 'Cause I
Right.
thought, well, this will be nice. At least we'll enjoy eating them.
Well, yes. Ish.
Fish. And of course, he took one look at them. He said, "I've got some dreadful news for you." He said, "I won't confirm it till I've."
You've done it.
But after he'd seen to them, he said, "You'll never be able to eat them." He said, "They're too fat."
Oh.
And so
They just ate.
apparently they must have eaten and eaten and eaten, and the whole thing was so fatty it was hardly true.
Like the old medieval
so
sheep.
so those little
Pinky pig.
those little lambs were, they were a disaster. But anyway, that
But then you had another visitor, didn't you, who came, but there were a lot of them, and they got into your trees and sat.
oh yes, oh no, this
You had a visitation.
This was for the Starlings.
Yeah.
Now I don't know. People like Starlings, and one Christmas Eve, because I'm a great Christmas. I love
Yes,
Christmas.
I love
think
Christmas.
Christmas
I
is
do.
a marvelous time
Yes.
of the year.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, isn't this significant? Christmas
Birds
Eve,
coming.
and suddenly the sky darkened,
Yes.
and it was a cloud, literally a cloud of starlings,
Mm.
and it absolutely obliterated everything.
Amazing.
And they settled down onto Well Manor, and the trees all round and what's and they settled down on us like that. And I thought, isn't that lovely? That's a real Christmas greeting.
Ish, yeah.
Really wonderful.
Okay.
Until, of course, the next day when we went out, and there was poo all everywhere,
Yeah.
literally
White,
that thick.
yeah,
You have no
yeah.
idea.
You
what
turn
it
white
was.
and grey overnight.
And
And
I
they
thought, well,
stayed.
they'll be going. So,
Yeah.
so Christmas Day went and Boxing Day, but blow me down. They used to depart at sort of they'd wake up at dawn,
Oh.
and an hour later they were all gone. So where
Yeah.
they went, I don't know. And then
Eating.
before sunset,
Yeah.
this cloud, the sky would darken. I can't tell you, and it's absolutely true.
Yeah,
the number
believe.
of them there were, it was literally a dense cloud of them. And they'd come back just before sunset and settle in the trees. But I mean, the next day and all that.
Yeah,
and,
a mess.
And they were killing the trees off.
Oh, right.
So I rang up the Ministry of Agriculture, and they said, "You've got a problem on your hands." They
That
said,
was good of them, wasn't it?
Yeah, they said they can destroy a wood within a month.
Really?
And they said, if you fire a gun at them, they'll take no notice of it, but you'll get complaints because the dead birds will fall down in the street,
Yes.
and people will complain about, particularly if you're next to a village, which
Right,
we were.
which
We
you
were
were
in the middle of
it,
the village.
yeah.
So if we'd have fired a gun, all these birds would have dropped down dead in the middles of the road, and we just get complaint.
Oh, right.
So, but I always find a solution. Every problem has got a
Well,
solution.
we
You've just
live in
got
hopes.
you've just got to find
Work
it.
at it,
So I
yes.
worked at it, and I found in Belgium, believe it or not,
As you would.
as you would, in
Well
Belgium,
done, Belgium.
in Belgium, a firm which specialised in this.
Right.
Probably in Europe it's just as big a problem.
Right.
And this firm had specialised in them, and they had discovered a rocket. And they made these special Starling rockets, which when they came to settle,
Right.
you set one of these rockets off, and it exploded amongst them. It was just designed to go off at the right height.
Right.
So it exploded in the middle of them.
So it didn't damage them. It
Didn't
just
damage them. It
gave
just
them an earache.
exploded, gave them earache, and they flew off. So I sent for a dozen of these things. They're
Right.
quite expensive. And I lit one, bang, and they all turned round and flew away. And we
Right.
never saw them again.
That was it.
That
One
was it.
rocket.
One rocket.
Did you sew the 5 back?
No,
Oh,
I
right.
kept them in case they came back, in case they came back. But it just shows you this is an answer always to every problem.
Yes, there is. But the Ministry of Ag should have known that, shouldn't
They
they?
should have known.
You
it,
know.
but anyway,
Well done, the Ministry of Ag, who are no longer
but
there.
Starlings, I've always had I used to admire them and like Starlings.
No,
but now
they've never been my favourite bird. You know, something like the we will progress because I think we're running, if that clock is to be believed, over the top, my son. That the rockets have done the biz, and we've yet to get into your Christmas parties,
got a
the
lot
videos,
to cover.
and the fact that. You fell upon computers in King's Lynn, which
Oh,
isn't a sort of
yes.
place you'd expect to fall
No,
on
I didn't
them.
fall on them in King's Lynn. I always
went
like
purposely.
I like to be ahead of the technology.
Yes.
Even my, you know,
Even
my
now you
advanced
are.
age, I've still got one of the
I know,
special wristwatches, which
and I'm doing the
takes
reverse.
photographs. I'm videoing you as we talk.
Yeah, I know.
you
I'm doing a retreat from technology. I support Postman Pat, as you know.
But so when we were at Whale Manor,
Yes.
I've discovered computers, and of course I bought one.
Yes.
And I thought, well, this is very, but it was quite complicated.
Oh,
in those-
boring is
but
program
very,
language.
very. A mobile phone has more power than those
Huge,
computers that we
absolutely
bought then.
huge now.
And so I thought, well, I must get some proper instruction on it. So I went into King's Lynn, and there I found a shop that had computers and what's it. And
Oh,
there was a
right.
young man in there, delightful young man, Peter
Right.
Smith.
Uh-huh.
And I said to him, would you please come over, if I pay you, come over and teach my staff how to use a computer.
Oh, right.
So he said yes.
Yeah.
I arranged for him to come over to Upwell.
Right.
And he came over one evening. I shall always remember it because he spent the entire evening.
Yeah.
I had 6 of my staff there, office staff. I thought it was a good opportunity for them to learn. And do you know what he taught them in an evening?
Well, if he was doing sort of program language, probably not a lot.
It wasn't program language.
Right.
It was just he just put the date and time into a computer.
You're
So it
kidding.
shows you how computers have advanced.
Yes, and they're still nowhere near being friendly.
And the whole thing is the same problems that exist because the vicar who lived next door to us,
Oh, yes.
he was writing a book and he said, "Can I borrow your computer to write my book?"
Oh,
And I said, "Yes, of course you
Yeah.
can." So he borrowed the computer and he wrote his book, and of course he didn't back it up, and it broke down and he lost all the book he'd written, which was a dreadful thing. So it shows you the same problems happen today.
so what you've got to remember out there is back up
Back
all the
up,
time.
back
Just
up
keep
all
backing
the time.
Eric, we've got to the end. We didn't do a lot. We had a few distractions this morning, didn't we? We will speed up, won't we?
Well, we
on
will,
This Is Your
definitely.
Life, because we're actually living it faster than we can record it.
Absolutely.
Because you're still doing,
Oh,
you're
yeah,
still out there.
I've got 4 inventions on the go
You
at the
have.
moment.
And,
yes,
and,
which we
and
must
what,
talk
you're
about.
only 88?
Only 88.
So
yes.
4 is one for every 22 years of your life, which is great. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us today. Hopefully we'll be fit and hale and healthy next week, won't we?
Yes,
The
hope
sun's
so,
been
yeah.
glorious, the beach has been great.
I've
the
been swimming.
atmosphere's
I've
fine.
been swimming twice in the sea.
Yeah, you
yes,
said.
yes, lovely.
yeah.
Yes.
I haven't done that since I got back from the golf. I'm not likely to. You know.
Oh, you
no.
should do. It's good for you.
Well, I would in the meadow somewhere, but
oh, it's lovely.
I
It's
mean,
really-
I sort of
once,
got used.
Once you get in, it's gorgeous. Good.
You enjoy. Thank you very much. We will see you same time, same place next week. Felixstowe TV, Gainsborough Studio, signing off. Bye-bye. Bye, Eric. Bye,
Goodbye.
Bella. Bella's gone to sleep.
Right.